The federal government's announced 2 new detention centres to cope with the steady flow of asylum seekers. Almost 2,000 people will be sent to the facilities near Perth and Adelaide. The opposition claims it's more evidence of policy failure. But it's not the only change. Over the next 9 months, hundreds of detained children will be moved into the community. From Canberra, Hayden Cooper reports.
– 106 boats and more than 5,000 people have made illegal immigration one of the political issues of the year. Now 2 Prime Ministers have grappled with it, and this is the latest effort.
The government has decided to commission 2 new immigration detention facilities.
The first will hold 1,500 single men at Northam, 80 kilometres north of Perth. The second, near the Woodside Army Base in the Adelaide Hills, will accommodate 400 people, mostly families.
There are more than normal numbers of people in detention. That has meant some tough decisions have needed to be made.
Chris Bowen got the toughest job of all in the Gillard reshuffle. Since he took it, he's announced 3,000 new beds.
Isn't this proof that the government's border protection policies have comprehensively failed? How will opening more beds stop more boats?
This is a matter that will not be solved by a 3-word slogan.
This is how the new detention regime will look. The centres at Northam and Adelaide will be added to a growing list of facilities in Darwin, Curtin, Leonora, Port Augusta, Melbourne, Sydney, Far North Queensland and Christmas Island. 2 more options, one near Darwin, another in Melbourne, are the next likely solutions. The Prime Minister says it'll bring an end to some temporary arrangements.
Most particularly the use of tents at Christmas Island and some motels that have been used to accommodate family groups.
Families and children will be the biggest winners from the new deal. By June next year, hundreds could be out of detention and into the community, with the help of churches and charities.
We're really pleased to see that around 1,500 children and their families are going to be moved out of detention into the community, and certainly Uniting Care is looking forward to a constructive partnership with government and others in providing those children and their families the supports they need to live well in the community.
Exactly where they will live is yet to be decided.
For example, maybe former aged care facilities which are no longer in use, maybe former church facilities for accommodating members of the clergy which are no longer in use. They're the sorts of examples.
Australian of the Year Patrick McGorry considers it a step in the right direction.
These policy changes move Australia back more towards the mainstream of international best practice in this area.
But for others, the move is too minimal.
We need to ensure that these reforms go further and that they apply to all people, not just children and families.
And the West Australian Premier is again less than happy that his state will do most of the heavy lifting.
Half of all of the asylum seekers detained on the Australian mainland are in Western Australia. With this decision today, that number is probably going to increase to 60 or 70%.
He's raised fears of riots or breakouts. The Prime Minister's shift on children in detention is undoubtedly a nod to the left, a softening of policy so long demanded by refugee advocates. It delivers a breakthrough to the Greens, who've used their alliance with Labor to lobby for the change. But in public, Julia Gillard's keeping her distance.
These measures have not been part of a deal with other parties, as has been suggested. These decisions have been taken by the government and the government alone.
Perhaps a response to an attack like this.
If you look at the government, Labor is in government, but the Greens are in power.
A new catch cry for the new paradigm.
This is a process.
Hayden Cooper, Lateline.